So, hello everybody. In this video, I want to talk about what is the best self-defense martial art. I ranked them, right? So very short intro, right, about me. I have been trained in martial art my whole life. I have several, black belts, whatever, right? I've been an instructor, both for different martial art and also like self-defense courses, etc. And of course, this is a dear topic to me, right? I've been training martial art for like 26 years now, something like that, which is kind of crazy. I feel old, and I own every goddamn martial art tool you can imagine, right? I got the nunchuck, I got the spear, I own like 20 swords, right? Got everything, the handbow, I got the black belt and handbow, I got I got different nunchuck, right? I got this is a dragon nunchuck, this here is a normal nunchuck, for example. So you can see they're different because look at the chain. Alright, so if you hold them at the chain, right, you can see how this is dragon nunchuck, it's a much longer chain on it. So it's much harder to do extra to it. This one is heavy too, and it has a dragon like engraving on it. So it is actually a much better weapon. It's more heavier in the bottom here, and it actually deals way more damage. Okay, this is like probably it's like 4 or 5 times stronger than a normal nunchuck because it actually has more weight to it. It gets thicker, right, in the end and so on. So this is like a much more an actual realistic nunchuck, etc. But anyway, I digress. Right? We talk a lot about anime in the channel, right? Manga, anime, gaming, and now I talk about strategies like for war and so on. Very Sun Tzu's channel, I feel. And of course, we have a bunch of different animes, right? We have Ippo, because Kenichi and so on, right? So I might do another video, right? Talking about fictional martial art and so on. But this video here, let's talk about real martial art. Again, this is a serious video. I want to discuss to you guys and give you my advice on what martial art are good for self-defense, right? And I really want to emphasize that though. Just like Kenichi in his anime, right? Strongest disciple Kenichi. This tier list here is about, again, self-defense, right? Because you can make a list about what is the most, like, assassin, what is the most MMA or whatever, right? But I want to focus on the core principle of martial art, which of course is self-defense, right? You're being bullied or whatever. What martial art I recommend you to pick up, right? To defend yourself against bullies or etc. Or a street fight or whatever. So I'm looking at it from that perspective. And if you see my previous videos, we're talking about strategies, right? Life and stocks or whatever. I am, kind of tough love guy, right? So I'm gonna be kind of rough here because I find a lot of martial art pretty pointless, right? In reality, and there's some martial art that I have no confidence in them whatsoever in a real conflict, right? To some extent. And I'm not even talking about the McDoddios that are very famous in America. But anyway, let's talk about it, right? So I just took one of the biggest lists I could find, tier list. I haven't made it myself, so I'm sure there are many martial arts not in this list here, certainly. But this is like most of the big ones, right? And also, I don't think we have to go into like, oh, this specific Bojutsu versus this jutsu. They have to go in and like, oh, this thing only from this, yeah. So this is like kind of the general dojus you will find, right? Something like, for example, sumo wrestling is people talk about, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing and so on, right? Anyway, let's start talking about it. So I'm gonna start with boxing to kind of put me in the mode of the video, right? And I put boxing here in a very good middle, right? So I started boxing on purpose because I like to kind of, give you a taste of how I am reasoning, right, when it comes to tier list, right? It's like when we do a video game tier list, same thing here, right? Boxing is a martial art, which I found is like the good thing with boxing, and this is probably what some people have boxing very high, right? Is that it's very straightforward. It's literally very straightforward. You're punching someone, straight punch, right? Like that right there. And that's always going to be the strength of boxing. That is probably the least complicated martial art, both from a training standpoint and also utilizing it in an actual combat, right? And I don't mean that just because you're boxing, you're dumb or whatever, but let's be honest here. You have technique in boxing and so on, but like there's not much strategy. You punch someone compared to some other martial art are way more, how I say it, convoluted, right? But I mean, it's an advantage here, right? It might sound like I'm sitting here, oh, boxing is terrible. No, but I mean, there's some other martial arts where you're like, okay, but that requires all these, steps or whatever. That is usually way worse, of course, in a self-defense, like a real-life situation. If you have a very convoluted strategy, that is probably not as good, right, to actually utilize it, right? And that's always been boxing's biggest strength. That is the most, literally, again, straightforward self-defense. You punch someone really fast, really hard, right, and you win. The issue with boxing, though, right, and it's a massive thing, that is, I think, Balrog, perfect fix, boxer then, right? as it's called beautifully. Boxer in Street Fighter, and of course I'm very excited. Street Fighter 6. I'm a huge Street Fighter fan. I play a lot of fighting games competitively. Boxer is a perfect example of why I think boxing has a huge weakness, though. And of course, that you're only using your hands. You know what I mean? Obviously, when you punch someone, you can use your hips and everything, right? But you get my point. When you are fighting, and if you only are training boxing, you're limiting yourself away from like 95% of techniques you could have, right? So boxing, while the most straightforward, least complicated, so in that sense, the best thing on a street fight, because you just punch someone really quickly, fastly, before they react or whatever, right? But it is a really weird. I would never, ever recommend anyone to only train boxing self-defense. I think it's incredibly terrible in that sense, right? Going from only boxing, right? However, if you train boxing with also, let's say, judo, whatever, comment to later course. If you only train boxing, then it's really terrible. Yes, you can punch really quickly, but I mean, you don't know anything else, right? So that's very common with a lot of professional MMA and so on too, right? You know, they train boxing plus something more, right? And then it's very effective. Then you have learned the most basic thing, how to fight, right? You know, punching. And then you learn maybe how to throw people, grab, escape, or whatever. So you have to train also. But only knowing boxing on a street fight is just terrible. Because you're going to get in a fight where someone is like, oh, this guy is fighting me with like a broken bottle or like a chair at a bar, right? Or like someone in school is bullying you, and then suddenly he throws something at you, and then he grabs a chair and hits you with his chair or whatever, right? Boxing is going to be terrible there. But other martial arts actually teach you how to use, tools or whatever more effective, right? Like a handball, right, and so on. And for me, right, from a strategy aspect, a Sun Tzu kind of war aspect, right, it makes no sense to train boxing because it limits you away from every other technique, right? But again, the massive strength that is you only know how to throw a punch is the most effective way to really quickly punch someone in the shin and knock them out. It's very effective. And I think that when it comes to boxing, the last thing I say then is that it is like it's pretty good against noobs, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's probably why I feel boxing has its biggest strength. Like some drunk guy is trying to attack you on the street, you quickly just punch them on the chin and knock them out very quickly, right? It's best against really it's very good against amateurs. You just punch them quickly. It is not good against anyone that actually can use weapons or whatever. Yeah, then it's pointless, right? So it has a massive liability. But I think a lot of martial art have an issue with depending who you fight, right? Like what is the best thing to actually have against like a professional fighter versus like a bully at school, right? And so on, and the personality. So that's boxing, right? That's something fun. So let's start with where Dimaki is useless. That's like that's magic. Yeah, okay, we can put it on immediately. Dimaki is a death touch, right? That's popularized in the 70s and 80s. So Dimaki is basically a pressure point. So it'd be something like it's like the Hinata and Neiji from Naruto, basically, right? But in real life, yes, Dimaki doesn't work, right? Obviously not. There is pressure points and so on, but it's basically, you know how Shiro practice, right? And so on doesn't work either, like the whole pressing your button and so on, yeah. Shiro practice is basically scam, right? Yeah, most of them, yeah, more or less, right? Dimaki is like scam martial art. It's like, oh, I hit your chakra point, so no, you can't use your legs or whatever. No, it doesn't work like that. You do have some pressure points and like nerve centers, right? And there is a core techniques where you hit on nerves and so on. It does exist, but the whole martial art of Dimaki is just like focused on that. So it's basically like Shi attacks. Yeah, it's like throwing a Hadouken. Doesn't make any sense. No, it's freaking terrible. What have my hand will press the button. It is completely terrible. Yeah, I mean it's just complete cray, right? It's crazy. There's probably some more stuff here. It's also like Tai Chi is the same thing. Actually, I guess it's better than Dimaki, but Tai Chi equally isn't an actual martial art, right? So Tai Chi is the one you see the old man in the park in China doing, right? And Tai Chi is like a pretty good, how do I say it? Like to stay in shape if you're like 85, But obviously Tai Chi has like no actual con attack. It's mostly just like you're moving your arms or whatever, right? And again, if made a list here saying which is the martial art, which martial art is like good for staying in shape or something, and I wouldn't, again, Tai Chi isn't a martial art, but I mean, then it might be higher, right? Because it isn't actually useless from like, okay, you're training your body, but obviously it's basically like doing yoga, right? Yoga fire and so on, yeah. Dalsim time, yeah, but it basically is like Tai Chi is like, oh, I'm flexing my arm and I'm stretching or whatever, right? So it isn't useless to stay in shape, or at least to improve your shape or whatever. Use like yoga, right? But just like yoga, you don't learn to fight with Tai Chi, right? So it is completely useless, of course it is. But the Dimaki or Dimaki is like magic, so that's like throwing fireballs, man. Yeah, that's like I'm going straight, I'm gonna throw a Hadouken at him. But they're both just like magic. Yeah, that doesn't work, of course. This is some more magic stuff here. These are probably two real hardcore magic stuff. Okay, let's have something else. Something real then. Let's talk about Shaolin Kung Fu. Okay. So Shaolin Kung Fu is maybe even S tier, man. Yeah, that's maybe one of the best martial arts. Shaolin Kung Fu is kind of like, the classic martial art that Lei Fei has a bit to fight on. But Shaolin Kung Fu, right, is of course the martial art with the monks use, right? The martial art monks of China. And if you're gonna define it as a martial art, it's a very, very powerful martial art because these guys just do anything, right? Yeah, they have no rules. They use any kind of weapon, right? They have katanas, they have spears, they have the Dao sword, which I have over there, which I forgot to pick up here, right? They're using different kind of, blade swords. So they have no rules whatsoever. They use every kind of tool and they train with every kind of weapon, which is great. They have no, again, rules how to fight someone. Everything is fair, knee, joints, everything, you can punch someone. Yeah, there's no rules whatsoever, right? And of course, the Shaolin guys are like the most fit guys ever. So it's probably S tier, kind of comedically. It's kind of weird, but no, but it's like warrior monks, But I do think there's one thing though, with Shaolin Kung Fu, that is of course is that the whole, it's a bit Kempo, kind of the Japanese Zen monks too, is that it requires this enormous amount of time, right, to make it useful. Yeah, so I think it's fair to have it in S tier probably. I'm assuming that you basically are like a Shaolin monk, right? And then it's like goddamn S tier. But no one living in like America or whatever is gonna be, I'm gonna have to train Shaolin Kung Fu and he's become like that strong. It's gonna take like 20 years to get there, right? Yeah, it isn't a martial art for self-defense. And for that matter, one other list you could make, right, is you could make a list and tier list what is a martial art that is the quickest way to defend yourself, right? That's another way to look at it, and this is not what we're doing here right now. But I value that to some extent, right? And boxing, again, I would say that boxing is good because boxing, if you start training boxing, you can definitely like defend yourself against a bully, perhaps, right? If you're 12, 13, whatever, right? So in boxing, you can learn how to fight pretty quickly, right? Where something like Kung Fu, or even then all the Kung Fu's, right? All the Kung Fu's, all the Chinese martial art, they're not very effective in the beginning. No, they have a way higher stepping, to get effective. But it's a little bit of a weird thing here because it's just a niche thing, and everyone doing it are like martial art living guys. They just live to fight in their monk temples, so they're all like super good shape too. Yeah, they're all like incredibly like indestructible too. So yeah, it's a little bit hard to weigh them in that sense. Basically, these guys can do any martial art with their bodies, right? In a way, but. Sumo is definitely a terrible martial art. Yeah, sumo is terrible. So, not to say too much about sumo, right? We have animes like, Hinamura Sumo. That's a great main character, man. He's a short guy. Yeah, Kenichi, he's like, does everything. But Hinamura Sumo is about a guy that's like, he's too tiny to be a sumo. So he's like, I need to train and become good. But anyway, sumo fighting is probably the worst martial art that is a martial art. We're like Tai Chi is like magic or whatever, right? It doesn't work at all. It's completely nonsense, right? Sumo wrestling has too many rules, right? As I mentioned earlier, boxing is kind of meh in the sense that because they also have rules, right? Boxing is very limited by only having your fist, right? Very limited. Where then Shaolin Kung Fu has no rules, right? You can do anything you want, which is like a massive advantage, right? If you master anything you want, right? Sumo is way worse than boxing, right? Where sumo has you can slap people. Sumo, they can only push this thing, right? You can do that, they do the slap thing. They can throw them, and if the knee touches the ground, they lose and so on. Sumo is such an incredibly bad martial art because nothing really works in sumo fighting, right? Like it has so many rules and regulations to limit you how you fight. And people say, oh, but this massive sumo guy is gonna be, he's like a big ass sumo, is gonna punch you, you die. It is true that, of course, the sumo wrestlers, they do really high damage because they're so heavy and so on, right? But the actual truth, of course, is that these guys could still do more damage if they just didn't do sumo attacks. You know what I mean? If you are like a Yokozuna, a really, really massive, well-trained, and still fast sumo, right? And you fight someone, and you don't use sumo moves, you use other moves, but but you have that body, that's gonna be better. You know what I mean? Just because they are really, really massive doesn't mean that they're gonna have a good martial art. So I think that's why sumo is utter shit, right? Because even the guys doing sumo would do better if they immediately stopped doing sumo in a real life combat, right? Yeah, like if they stopped using their own techniques and just fought like any other martial art, you know, that they probably still can use, right? Because they kind of the basic, instead of punch this, I punch it with a fist. Yeah, instead of doing this, I punch it with an elbow. You know, like instead of like the sumo wrestling loses if their knee touches the ground, right? That's the biggest thing. That just shows you how incredibly pointless as a martial art is, right? Like it doesn't apply anything on. And of course, the whole bodies they have, right, is because the martial art has so many rules that it basically is really valuable being really fast, right? Because it helps you to win in that very, very specific rules. And also for that matter, right? Let's talk about fatness and so on, and sumos. I mean, they obviously have muscles as well. They aren't just fast, right? So they are very, very powerful. But the thing is also that sumo wrestling has many weird rules, but there is no weight rule, right? If I said it correctly, right? Because I've never done so, I've seen it in real life and so on, of course. I've seen the anime about it, but there is no actual weight class at all, right, in sumos. Because if you go to sumo, because where I live, if you go to sumo fighting, it's like you can see a mass yokozuna fighting a kid, right? So of course, then weight is being fat is an advantage because, well, if I'm really fat, you're just kind of fat, you're harder to push me out, right? Yeah. But so that's also a reason why they're so fat, right? Because they have no drawback of being fat, by rules at least, right? It's obviously slower, but there's no, you know, actual drawback. So sumo is a very versatile thing, and if you actually fight sumo, I have fought sumo guys, you know, for like sparring and so on, and they're completely, they have their stamina is like a minute, right? They get tired after a minute, and you can just run away from them, you know what I mean? You can just leave them, yeah. And they're so slow, right? That if you have any kind of weapon, you can just go around and poke them in the back. They can do nothing, right? So I mean, the actual sumo body makes you completely pointless in an actual street fight, right? Because you can just, I mean, taking someone is just like, you know, yeah, you have no chance to block that, right? So they're basically, it's kind of like a video game, right? They're like a tank. They have zero evasion, yeah. they're like a defense-based tank, right? They have zero evasion points, and that's really bad for surviving a street fight. So sumo is complete garbage, yeah. Sumo is really garbage, like really, really garbage. But I think it's fun that people, okay, Kyudo is also garbage. I guess it's worse though than sumo. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't made a list here. Kyudo is archery. This Japanese archer martial art. So we see the image there with like a person with a bow there. So this is of course completely used in a street fight or bullying or whatever. I can use Kyudo. It's like, yeah, there is a martial art where you need to have a weapon on you. A martial art that only works if you have your bow. Because at least if you train like Iado or something, right, you can at least apply your Iado techniques to like a staff or something. Yeah, to some extent, right, you can apply how you use your sword into like a you know to some extent, yeah. But if this is the martial art you use bows, that's, which is like a cool martial. It's a cool sport, no, archery. But yeah, obviously probably the hardest. That is versus sumo probably, yeah, like completely pointless. At least sumo still is, you can use a sumo technique. That thing completely useless. Do we have Iado here? I don't see Iado, but that's kind of weird. I haven't made a list. Okay, Kendo. Yeah. Kendo is much more useful, of course, than Kyudo. If you compare them, right? Yeah, because Kendo then, you have the shinai, right? The wooden Kendo sword, which is, so even if you don't have a Kendo on you, right, you can still use any kind of object that is kind of like a sword, right, in a street fight. And I always tell people that it's very useful. It is truly very useful in a street fight, and I've been in many in my life, right? It's very, very useful to be able to use tools, martial art, to speak. Not so much maybe the nunchuck. Yeah, being able to master the dragon nunchuck, this doesn't do much for you, right? In a street, you're like, oh, I can do my Bruce Lee, yeah. Going Bruce Lee with the nunchuck, right? You know, going Bruce Lee with this is pretty good, yeah. But going like, yeah, this thing, not very useful in a street fight because you usually don't have a nunchuck on you, right? It's very, very specific weapon, yeah. Very specific weapon, not very useful mastering the nunchuck for street fighting. But mastering the sword, right? Mastering the katana though for a street fight isn't actually that useless because you can very, very often, as you see in many movies and so on, right, find something that is basically a stick, right? Yeah. And if you can fight with a katana, you can fight with a stick, right? You have the same technique, the spins, the different legs, how you control them. Yeah. So if you master any kind of, spear, sword, whatever, right? That's very applicable into a lot of items you can find, even use an iron pipe or whatever, right? So you can use like a lot of stuff in a building or in the street or whatever, right? That is kind of like a weapon like that. But like the nunchuck, yeah, that's basically really pointless. That is almost like, okay, this is never gonna be useful. But the nunchuck you have to bring with you, yeah, that is clearly to bring with you. So Kendo isn't like completely useless. It's better because they can use the technique, but yeah, is it better than Sumo? It's probably the same level because I think it's better than Sumo. Sumo is so pointless. Sumo is just like, with all the rules, Sumo is really garbage. I guess Kendo's over here, but it might be like this. But yeah, so Kendo techniques, Iado and so on. It's kind of like I said. Yeah, you can use that. You can use that stuff, and you also might have something on you. You also might have something that is kind of like a stick. You can have like an iron thing or something. Yeah, so you might pick up something you can use as well, or you might have something on you, right? It's not completely useless. And also, many of the Kendo and Iado techniques are also useful in a normal, if you use them like a normal. It's either the form of the Kendo, right? The form, different stances, still martial arts techniques. It's still useful, even if you're unarmed. You can still use some techniques anyway. So it's not completely useless, but yeah, better than Sumo. But of course, it's not very good. I guess Russian Systema is kind of the same thing. You're fighting with some weapon, yeah, whatever. It's basically the same thing, right? It's like a Russian thing, fighting with sticks. It basically follows the same thing as Kendo. You can use, you can use the Systema as like a stick weapon. You can use it at the same time. It's basically the same logic, yeah. I guess it's better than Kendo because Systema actually might be more useful because it's more similar to real weapon or stuff on the street. So, but it's something in this kind of level where it's applicable probably in real fights. But okay, when I'm looking at this, boxing probably should be up here, but I'm probably gonna put them like here because I do feel this is probably more fair. Yeah, Sumo is maybe used. Sumo is probably the worst real martial art, right? Yeah, that is still isn't magic. It isn't like using magic stuff. Yeah. What more do we have? That is kind of that way. So Eskrima is kind of similar, I guess. It's probably better than these two though. So Eskrima is also like a stick fighting thing, right? It's kind of back to the Hambo yet again. Or the Tonfa, I have a Tonfa here, yeah, it's kind of similar to that, right? You have a Tonfa. Tonfa is also a weapon you never... What have a Tonfa for? Tonfa also maybe the best, it's like a stick though. If you're a cop though, Tonfas are basically the baton, right? A Tonfa is a Japanese tool that is how the baton was based on, right? So the American cop baton, right, is based on the Japanese Tonfa. So, not entirely never happening in reality in America. You might see a baton, right? So if you learn the tonfa is basically learning the baton, elbow blade, so not completely, but kinda, but you can kinda use it some sides. But the Eskrima is kind of similar, yeah. It's kind of like it's like a stick weapon, It's like it's again this like it's not applicable. So I got the Sai here, which is even more, Sai and Jutta, they're even more very specific here. A metal Sai here, but. The Sai, though, as a side note, the Sai is a very good weapon, though, I think. I think one of the best classic ninja weapons. No, but the Sai is very good because the Sai, right, you have the stick point, right, so you can use it as a, it's very, very good because I prefer, talking about here, self-defense. Sai is a defensive weapon, right, it's like the Jute. So it's very good to capture your enemy's weapons, right, and disarm them. It's a very, very good defensive tool, right, the Sai and the Jute. Yeah, they're very, very good to defending yourself. They are they counter many other objects and weapons, right? They're very countered, so the Sai and the Jute, you also have the money Sai. I don't have one of those, but when the Sai goes the other direction, right? So it's like a, it might be better, the money Sai. But, yeah, the Sais are very, very defense-based weapons, right? Not like in the movies when you fight with them like that. No, not really, but they're very good. They're good. So it's kind of like the same thing there, I guess we have something more like that. What more do we have? The brand, this is the cookery. So this is this weapon, right? We have here, cookery. The Bando, it's cookery. So in that sense, the cookery is one of the best weapons ever made. So I will definitely rank Bando higher because if you have a cookery, right? Since the cookery is the image there, the cookery is like the best weapon basically ever. No, but it's one of the best weapons. Right? It's one of the best martial weapons. The cookery It's like you have it here, right there. It's like a boomerang, steel boomerang shaped weapon, right? It's like a bow. It's a hatch. It's used by the Gurkha in military and so on. And yeah, the kukri is an incredibly good weapon, right? It's incredibly powerful. It does a lot of damage, not much force, and you can throw it, right? I train with it myself a lot. I have several kukris that you can throw them, and they fly right like a hatchet, you know, like a tomahawk. I'm gonna show it here, of course, but you can throw them like that, and they really fly easily. And I have trained at home in my house, right? This sounds very nerdy now, but really, right? I can throw my kukri and hit like a target, like destroy like a wall or something, like a 30 meter distance, and you know hit the head. So it's cooks are very very good. You can block with them. They're very used for tools, right? They used for tools for chopping down, you know, wood or whatever. So they're very very high utility. One of the best, I say, tools ever is a cookery. Seriously, this is a steelless, you know, stainless steel, you know, cookery course. But it is honestly an incredible good tool. It does everything, you know. You can use it for ranging. It's very good. It's easy for defense. It catches the blade. So it's a high defense point, so to speak. Very very high, you know, offense when you attack with it. It has range possibilities, and it also is useful just for everyday tools, opening stuff and so on. So cookery is like one of the best, seriously one of the best weapons that's ever been constructed, I would say. So yeah, it's a very very good weapon. And that kind of gives it the Bando is, you know, cookery style. But again, it's like, you know, you have to have a cookery on you on the street then. But, you know, it's like the best of these martial arts. No, I would rather teach you cookery than like a sword, okay? Cookeries are better, yeah. At least the basic cookery is better than the basic Kendo sword. But anyway, that's kind of all the weapons, I hope. I don't want to sit there and talk about all the weapons. They aren't that interesting. No, let's talk about something else, okay? Aikido. Yeah, Steven Seagal, you know, our beloved, you know, Steven Seagal guy. Yeah, so Aikido course is basically fake, right? It isn't entirely fake. I mean, Steven Seagal is known as a phony these days, right? Because he's fat now, but because all of his stuff is done, you know, lying about stuff and oh, I was the grandmaster of this and something. But he did move to Japan and had like a Japanese wife for some years. So he is, I do believe that he is a truly, I mean, I've seen the old tapes with him, right? He's like a black belt in Aikido, I think. Now, of course, Aikido itself is pretty shit, though. So, the problem, rather, I guess, when it comes to Steven Seagal, he's obviously the one that popularized Aikido in America, though. Absolutely, in the West End, absolutely. But Aikido is kind of like, you know, it's kind of nonsense, right? So, the way I look at Aikido, it's kind of like boxing, but even worse, right? So, when boxing, like I mentioned earlier, boxing is like, okay, I'm gonna never do my kicks, right? I'm gonna punch you, you know? I'm like this character in, you know, boxer and stuff like that. I only punch people. Aikido is like, I will only defend myself, right? That is terrible, yeah. It is terrible. Doesn't mean that martial art is for, of course, self-defense, which is true. But if someone fights me in a street fight, right, you know, if someone comes to me at school or whatever, I'm not gonna be like, I'm only gonna stand here and defend them. You know what I mean? If someone, for example, this is a real life story, right? A guy attacked me at the pool table at school. So I was 14. And he attacked me and pushed me and grabbed the pool and so on, you know what I mean? And he was on to fight me, you know? So he attacked me first. He almost set defense. But after that moment, when I kind of, how I say it, we kind of disengaged, right? A little bit. When kind of the fight started, right? You know what I mean? And he punched me, and I got blocked, and we got away. And now we're kind of having a few meters of distance, right, from each other. At this moment, right, he's kind of, you know, the typical bad butt to me. He's like, oh, you're ugly, you nerd. He's doing that kind of stuff, right, you know? But we're in a fight, right? We have this sort of fight. He punched me first, you know what I mean? So I of course, now broke his leg, right? So I broke his leg, that's it. So I took the pool cue and I broke his leg with it. When he was, you know, bad at me. And you can say, that's a Seagal move. No. My point, of course, is that in real life, right, you're actually kind of like, well, if you're really fighting me, it's because you're like, oh, you're losing, yeah. The fight is still on, right? You know what I mean? And when the fight is on, you can't just stand there and wait for your opponent to attack you, right? And I find it kind of funny too, because Seagal himself, though, in his movies, are probably the least defensive guy ever. Yeah, it's kind of hilarious because he is the Aikido master, but in his movies, which I guess is Aikido movies, right? All of his movies are basically like, oh, you fighting me at the pool table. I hit you with the pool ball. You know what I mean? It's a scene in one of his movies, right? When he grabs like a pool ball and, you know, hits someone in the face with it, right? You know, yeah, he gets the sock and, but yeah, and then basically, like, he has never been Mr. Defense. He's always been Mr. Offense, right? He's basically, oh, well, while I'm talking to you, I hit you in the punch. You know, he's always been that kind of guy. He's like an ambusher. He's like the master of sucker punch, right? If anything, he never uses Aikido in his move. In that sense, not at all. But of course, he's kind of Aikidoing them when they attack him, right? Yeah. But yeah, like I said, right. If you get into a fight in real life, you can't just wait for your opponent to attack you, right? And I mean, I'm not saying you should throw the first punch, right? I'm not saying that at all. Like I said in my example, that guy already attacked me, right? Now he was stopping attacking me, you know what I mean? And I don't mean he was stopping as he was this fight's over. I mean he was stopping because there was punch of people watching the fight, right? So now he's stopping and be like, yeah, go in, bros, yeah, give me, you know, it's kind of like that. Or you know, it's kind of like, you know, typical school fight. You know, people are around you in a circle. He's like, yeah, you're down, loser. You know, that kind of thing, right? You can't just stand there and wait for him to come to you again, right? It doesn't make any sense. If you have an opening, so to speak, right? Of course, it's a much longer story. I basically grabbed the pool cue and he tapped me for it. It's a good story, tapped me for it. 3 years after, he tanked me breaking his leg. Yeah, he met me when I was working, and he tanked me for breaking his leg because he saw the perspective of what I told him after I defeated him. I was like, it wasn't defeat me in friendship, but I gave him a good speech, you know. And he told me afterward how he's like, yeah, I see now what you mean. Like no one saved me and so on. It was interesting because my best friend was there, and after I defeated him. No one helped him, right? And there were much more of them. So it was me and my best friend against like 4 guys. But the other 3 guys didn't like help him, you know what I mean? So it just became 1 against 1. And his 3 friends, so to speak, didn't engage into my 1 friend, right? And I gave this speech like, you see, you don't have any friends because they're not willing to stand up for you, right? They're not willing to save you, even though you deserve it, and so on. And very interesting. But it's a older video. But basically, my point is that Aikido is shit, right? Because you can't just wait for someone to attack you. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't, again, utilize their speed or whatever against them, right? Typical martial art. But as a system itself, it's completely crazy to have a martial art that is only limiting yourself to fighting them when they're coming at you. Yeah, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. It's like, for example, we come to Judo later, I hope so. I don't see Judo here, but Judo is a good martial art. For example, Judo, right? You can also use the same techniques, but you also can attack them. but Judo also allows you to go first, though, yeah. It's like, sometimes you shoot first, you know. A lot of terrible martial arts here. We start with the crap, guys, okay? And then we work our way up, right? Then we work our way up, yeah. But definitely, Aikido is terrible. Just the idea itself to never attack first in an actual fight doesn't make any sense, right? And what can we take now then? US Army. I haven't made the list here. Let's take another S tier. Muay Thai. Okay, Muay Thai. I have competed in Muay Thai for many years, so I'm biased here. I also did self-defense. Yeah, I once need a guy in the plexus once in a street fight. That's pretty fun. But yeah, so Muay Thai is probably S super tier, right? This is like arguably the best martial art self-defense. So Muay Thai, obviously, is much better than boxing, right? So we can have it has to be at least 1 tier higher than boxing, because Muay Thai is Thai boxing, right? It used to call otherwise. And I trained it since I was a teenager. Started at like 16, I think, with Muay Thai. Done it for many years, and I've done Taekwondo, you know, for many years before that. So I'm a black belt in Taekwondo, and let's see, I started Taekwondo when I was 12, right? So I started Muay Thai. I had done Taekwondo for like 5 years or so before that, and kickboxing as well, in the same club. They opened up a club in my hometown, basically. We did both Muay Thai and kickboxing. And so I already done Taekwondo for many years before that. But Muay Thai is incredibly good, right? It is like the best martial art, like straight up. And yeah, I would say Muay Thai is probably the winner of the whole list. You can turn the video now. Yeah, but Muay Thai is probably the winner in the sense that it also has the highest value of... how to say it, quick to get decent, right? Yeah. Muay Thai is so effective and it's so straightforward that it has every advantage that boxing has, but it also includes your legs, right? So it basically is like boxing plus, right? Yeah, it's boxing but better than boxing. So it's very, very straightforward. And if anyone asks me like, oh, okay, I'm a bullied, you know, I'm a 19-year-old guy getting bullied at school, you know, what should I do, you know, what should I do, what should I train to be able to. Muay Thai is probably my number one. Yeah, it's the most straightforward, most simplistic way to defend yourself. Again, the boxing stuff very similar, but it also includes kicks and knees and elbows, right? So it's just a better version than boxing and has exact same kind of strategy depth to it. I'm just gonna punch you hard before you punch me, right? Of course, I'm breaking it down very simplistically, but Muay Thai is very, very good. So what Muay Thai has then, right, as I mentioned, of course, is that it uses your knees and elbows, right, mostly. So you have the kind of just shed, it's gonna have the sandwich, right? It has the knees. It's very focused on these kind of moves, right? But the thing is that I've played martial art my whole life, right? Knees and elbows are very powerful. Yeah, you have the typical boyok. You have that the 3 gram Chinese martial art, right? For example, it's also a very elbow focused martial art. It's my personal favorite kung fu style, right? It's like elbow kung fu style basically. Elbows and knees are kind of like usually your most powerful tool. It's also very, very effective for self-defense. I mean, genuinely, honestly, I can't stress this enough. Muay Thai is the best self-defense martial art, like straight up. Because Muay Thai also is how it works, because Muay Thai is just so good, guys. It's just so good. Because the way Muay Thai works, again, is that, yes, it's very straightforward, right? You put elbow first, you put elbow forward, right? You knee them first, right? But it's also very effective because if someone jumps you at school, right? For example, I once, when I was 15, there was a guy that jumped me, right? And he was bullying me. As a bully, he jumped me, started, punching me and so on, right? And I used neck clinch him, right? And I need him, I neck clinch him. And I go down, It's very, very good in self-defense. It's that perfect because it's so good in those ambush. Yeah, it's probably one of the best martial arts just when someone gets close to you, right? Because it's such a powerful martial art in very close combat, right? For example, Taekwondo is a much better martial art on long distance, right? Taekwondo has long kicks, so on, very long range, right? Taekwondo is better if you're like, let's fight, you're standing at maximum distance, right? You kind of, okay, let's go, bro, duel, Muay Thai is better if someone is already in your face. You use elbow damage. Yeah, Muay Thai is kind of like that. Right? You defend yourself immediately. That's where Muay Thai really, really shines, right? Used by itself, right? Yeah. So very effective, very good against ambushes, right? Very good against kind of close situations. It's a very like close combat, mainly focused martial art. So it's focused on, like when someone's after you, right? Neck clinching and so on. So that or like Judo or Jujutsu stuff, you throw them down, right? Yeah, but comment on so later here. The grappling stuff, of course, otherwise. But if you're not talking about grappling, but like, punching or elbowing, kneeing is much better if someone's at you, right? So Muay Thai is like the best martial art, straight up, I think, for self-defense. Again, not counting any grappling, right? But just like, if someone's at you, like you go to school, right? The thing is that, in my experience, and this is kind of how it is though, right? Most, school fights and street fights at the bar or whatever, they're kind of unplanned, If some drunk guy going crazy, he suddenly sucker punches you, right? And he jumps you. I mean, most fights on the streets are kind of like, suddenly it just happens, right? And then again, Muay Thai is very effective with all the close stuff, right? Where karate, taekwondo, and so on, they kind of require more range to be effective. They kind of have the straight punch. Yeah, they're much better in a proper fight, like in a duel. So that's a massive advantage for Muay Thai, and also by better than kickboxing, right? Because kickboxing is kind of like taekwondo, so it's kind of similar. Much better, right? But of course, also have grappling. Coming to grappling later, but focus on that now. Press the button here on. Pressing the button, there some ads. I always get Swedish ads. Yeah, it doesn't matter where I live. I think it's because I'm logged in on my Google account and I made it in Sweden like 20 years ago. No, but seriously, it doesn't matter if I move. I keep seeing ads from Sweden, whatever. But that's just kind of funny. Like, one thing I get a lot, the side though, but I get a lot of ads on YouTube. About like schools. So YouTube think that I'm uneducated. No, but I think that I watched a lot of science stuff on YouTube, right? So YouTube keeps giving me like, do you want to apply for university? I was like, yeah, I already have a couple of degrees though, but yeah, I already had a degree before YouTube was existing. Yeah, I had a master's degree when you started YouTube, but it's kind of like, you can stop telling me to go to school, YouTube. Well, I'm just a moron then. But anyway, the side, it's kind of funny. Every time I get ads, it's like, I usually school ads. Yeah, I was like, okay, Google, sure. But similar, where's kickboxing then? There's probably kickboxing somewhere, right? Kickboxing is like a worse, there they say. Kickboxing is just like a weaker version of Muay Thai, right? But it's fair to say that kickboxing is better than boxing because it's the same thing, but you can kick too. but that's what I mean. Boxing, kickboxing. Like, why would you master this thing? Like, this is like, oh yeah, I can punch and kick, right? Like, it's so straightforward. Like, it's better than boxing. It is fair to say that when you train at a club or whatever, right? It's like, yeah, maybe boxing is better because you treat only one thing. It's faster to master one thing. But, you know, we're looking at it from like, you're gonna master one of these sports, you know what I mean? You probably should master kickboxing better if self-defense also kick. It's objectively, I would say, better than boxing. It has exactly the same attacks as boxing, plus kicks, you know? In most clubs, at least. Yeah, in most clubs. It depends a little bit where you are, but, you know, for most people, it's like, oh, it's the same techniques, yeah. Just more techniques. So this is better. But like I said, then, it's straight up, it's a worse Muay Thai. Because kickboxing is basically Muay Thai. I am simplifying here, of course. But kickboxing is more or less Muay Thai without the knees and elbows. Yeah, it's very, very similar. You have kind of the same strategy. Like I said, it's more like a long-range strategy than a close-range, right? But it basically is like, I can't use close, straight attacks like elbows or knees. I can't neck clinch because, you know, there's against the rules. So I'm basically using my Thai boxing skills without kneeing and so on. Yeah, it's like kind of how it is. And I used to compete a lot in both of them when I was a teenager. And basically, like kickboxing tournaments, right? You kind of fight longer. It's like Taekwondo, okay? It's like Taekwondo, yeah. You kind of kick people in the face or whatever you say, and this is right. And in Muay Thai, you can also kick on, you know, below the belt, right? On the knees, right? So you kick on the knees, and you block with the knees, and you. Muay Thai is like kickboxing. That is like 10 times more painful because you kick so much on your leg shin. Your leg shin here gets broken every day, you know, on Muay Thai. Yeah, I have like no pain anymore in my shin, you know, because I kicked so much on my shin, right? So kickboxing is just like worse Muay Thai straight up. I can't see it any other way. I'm just being real with you guys. Kickboxing is worse than Muay Thai in every possible way, basically. And Taekwondo, we has to be here somewhere. This is hard to. Where's Taekwondo? Oh my God, they have to have Taekwondo somewhere. I mean, it's like a very iconic martial art, right? Sambo. I'm looking for the color. What's that? Oh my God, Kyoshi Karate, I guess. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's Capoeira. Yeah, that's Capoeira. It's best to see there. I can't find Taekwondo, Jesus Christ. But Taekwondo is obviously almost the same thing as kickboxing. Yeah, it's like the same thing. More or less, right? So that's what it would be then, otherwise. But sure, let's take one more grab, maybe. Okay, Wing Chun is cool. Okay, Wing Chun's like here. Yeah, or maybe it's like a Shaolin Kung Fu, okay? But Wing Chun is basically, you know, this kind of Bruce Lee, right? You know, this is like, okay, Wing Chun is kind of like, I'm just combining all the Chinese martial arts, right? But what I really like with that, is kind of the same thing as I mentioned earlier with Shaolin Kung Fu, is that it has no rules. I'm just using all the Chinese martial arts, right? Bruce Lee's concept was like, I'm just gonna use everything I know about nunchucks, you know? But basically, his philosophy, right, with the martial he used and these Kung Fus are that it's basically like, what can I do and what's the best thing, right, you know, from our school, basically, right? I'm just gonna combine all the different schools of martial art, right, into one martial art, right, and take the best stuff. So Wing Chun is very good. I trained it for a week. I also trained other Kung Fu, right, you know, of course I have trained Kung Fu. And it is a good martial art, right? It just combines everything's allowed. It doesn't really focus on grappling that much. It has some other limitations, but, you know, it's similar again to, yeah, the Shaolin Kung Fu. It's like, I can kick, I can punch, I can bite, you know. It's kind of like do everything you want with different techniques. And I think it's really good. So it's like a better version than kickboxing, right? And boxing, again. But it's not like, it's maybe it's S tier. But I think that Wing Chun is probably up here. Something like that, yeah. But, I mean, Muay Thai also almost allows everything as well. But it's just like, better focus on it. So that's kind of what that is. Maybe it's up here later. Yeah. Okay, let's go down. Kraw Maga is also very good. It's also up here. Yeah, it's preparation. So Kraw Maga is classic, you know, Israeli military martial art, right? And it follows, you know, obviously my same thought process here, right? Which I think it's always where I'm thinking martial art. That Kraw Maga is good because Kraw Maga is like, do what F you want, right? Yeah. It teaches you how to fight on the street, and Kraw Maga is very focused on straight up self-defense on the street, right? Like use your knees or whatever, right? So Kraw Maga is very good. It's probably actually better than Shaolin Kung Fu because of the thing is that Shaolin Kung Fu again is like this kind of random, Shaolin Kung Fu is just like, if I took the best person in the world in Krav Maga versus Shaolin Kung Fu, I imagine that the monk guys are like kick his ass easily because these guys are like superhumans, you know what I mean? It's a little bit like that. But the martial art itself probably isn't that good. It's like that martial art is like a lifestyle, right? Yeah, it really is a lifestyle. It's a little bit that, but Krav Maga is better, yeah. It's a better martial art for self-defense. Shaolin Kung Fu, it is. But the actual people doing it are very, very niche. But I still think Mauy Thai is better because Mauy Thai, again, is focusing on the most effective, most powerful users in self-defense. Like, I'm gonna elbow you in this situation. It is focusing on the most effective, like high damage attacks in like an ambush. But Krav Maga has basically everything's allowed, and you also teach you how to use your knees or whatever, your keys and so on. So it's a really good martial art. But I think it's kind of iconically, it's a good self-defense martial art. What more do we have? In a similar vein, we don't talk about US Army is kind of similar. Ignore that. What more can I rant about? I don't know what the blocks is. I don't know what it is. So just ignore it. Blocks. It feels like whoever did the list like removed the like it's missing a word here. Yeah, it's missing a word. But whatever. Ignore that. Hapkido is kind of like Taekwondo, so it's somewhere here. It's like the other Korean one. Hapkido is the other big Korean martial art. It's very similar to Taekwondo. Very, very similar. So it's basically on Taekwondo level, kicks and blocks and so on. Yeah, it's very similar, I would say. Could be if I'm wrong, but I think, Leon below, I think it's very, very similar to Taekwondo. Is that Taekwondo? Over here, it's like the Korean Magatama. Oh, whatever, I get it. Where is, let's take Karate then. It's also somewhere here, right, yeah. Karate Do. We also got the classic. What is it? Shotokan Karate. It's gonna up here too. I'm gonna do Karate all at the same time here. Empty hand. Do we have another Karate? Yeah, there we got Camp Karate is the best one. Also, it's up here probably. It's probably up here actually. If it's the one I'm thinking of. I also like collect all the Karate on the same time. Basically. What's this? Oh, it's like Kung Fu, Xing Fu, yeah, okay. MMA, what's that? Kyokushin Karate? It's not hard to read them. Koko, Wrestling, Jujutsu. Oh yeah, that's the Bhagwan style. That's pretty effective. And then we have Pancreon. Okay, let's do them like this, okay? I'll put this up here too. I'm gonna do them all on the same time, basically. It's probably roughly here. Kempo is a little better. I don't know what that one is. The yin yang symbol. It's like it's supposed to be Taekwondo. But so basically, right? Let's do the karate ones. So karate ones is kind of the similar things to them. And also Taekwondo, if I have Taekwondo here then. I think Taekwondo might be the red, yellow Magatama down there, but it seems weird. But anyway, so these martial are all kind of similar, right? It is not a big difference between like, oh, I have this style, and of course, again, I haven't made this list. There are a lot more martial arts, right? There are a lot more ryus, right? Ryu, is dragon in Japanese. R-Y-U, right? Ryu, you can't see better. But Ryu also means style. That's why you hear a lot of back oh, I have the Ushuru, oh, I have the Hebi Ryu, snake style. I got the Tori Ryu, the bird style, yeah, that's kind of very Japanese naming, right? Naming convention. So you have a lot of different like karate ryus, right? Or Kyokushin karate and so on. Okinawa karate, whatever. You have a lot of different like naming in different countries, and depending on where you're from, right, they name it differently. They're also missing like Taido and so on. I don't know other Japanese martial arts. So the other Japanese martial art is like a ryu something, right? But the karate style are many and plenty, right? With similar naming convention, right? But they're all kind of the same thing, right? We covered it a bit earlier. They are similar to Taekwondo kickboxing. You punch people, you're allowed to do it right, and it's pretty effective. But the thing is that they're all kind of limited, and the more I think about things, I might even move all these things down now to that C tier, because we haven't gotten into, of course, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo and so on, right? And these are much better, right? Because karate and so on, I mean, yeah, you can punch and kick, you can block, right? You got the typical fist, you learn how to block and so on, right? You learn how to do this stuff, right? You have the different, this different stuff. It's the same thing in all of them. I'm not gonna go in different, this karate, that karate. Oh, this one has more kicks. This one has more blocks. This one also throws, you know what I mean? All of them are still worse than, for example, Shaolin Kung. There's like, do whatever you want, right? Yeah. And Kempo karate, if I think that's what I'm thinking about here, I might be right here, hopefully. Kempo karate is kind of like the Shaolin Kung Fu version in Japan, right? I think that's what this list here means, because Kempo karate or Kempo Kung Fu is the Shaolin version that is in Japan, which usually is a much better, in this case, than martial art, because it again allows basically everything, right? So it basically has more of a do whatever you want, teach you all deadly moves kind of style, right? So I feel it's quite fitted like that. But the way I'm gonna look at this now, then I'm gonna probably move down all of this, right? And if you had Taekwondo, it probably would go the same way. So you can see I'm shitting on boxing. I really am, because boxing isn't that good in the end, right? So it's moved down. Boxing is out. Yeah, boxing is here now, the screen, something like that, right? And because let's talk about all these, throwing martial arts, right? So we're gonna have this one, MMA as a sport itself. What more do we have? These I suppose are judo. Honestly, I don't understand this list. I haven't made a list, but I'm just gonna say that the G's are judo. I think it's Jujutsu. I think what they want that is like Jujutsu. Ju means soft, right? So it's like the Japanese for soft. That's what they want there. Oh, that's Kyokushin karate over there. They can go into that karate pile. Yeah, it's like one of the many karates there. It's the same thing. Yeah, it's like I got the Hapkido, Kyokushin karate, whatever. Yeah, very, very similar, very roughly the same. Oh, there we go. Gracie, Jutsu, this classic. What more of it? What one of these like staff martial arts is probably like down here with the sumo things. This is one of the martial arts, fist martial art things. Yeah, we got the Sambo over there. We got wrestling somewhere, I think. Yes, there we go. Wrestling is there. That's somewhere up here. Then I was Judo somewhere there. And then we got Budokan, which I will talk about later, obviously. And I probably missed something. Kyudo is like weapon martial art. I guess I put them somewhere here. Yeah, that's like Kyudo. So I got in the middle of those things. What more do we have? Savate is the kicking. I guess I put Savate somewhere in there, like kickboxing, boxing, strategy here. Somewhere there. Yeah, somewhere in the middle of like the kicking ones. Sambo is like shot punching, so it's probably somewhere here. Probably also up there. Yeah, you can see it now. I will show it later, but I'm putting Sambo. Yeah, I'm putting Sambo up here. I put them a little outside, right? They're getting up there now. Sambo and Savate, yeah, they're getting up in the mid tier. The still up, this is like a knife thing that's really ineffective. It's not even good for the martial, it's probably bottom. It's gonna sort this a little better. And that could be a good start. I'm gonna do this thing here first. Okay, so now let's talk about grapplers, right? Yeah. So grappling self-defense, right? As I said, the more I looked at the list, I felt that no, I needed to kind of move, I needed to like move down all this like karate, boxing, all this like the punching stuff. I needed to move them down, right? Because I still want to have like Mauy Thai higher than, for example, Jujutsu. Guess it's the one. Yeah, I still want to have it higher probably. But actually, I might move these ones higher up. Thinking about it, you know what? Yeah, I'm probably gonna like focus these ones. Yeah, I'm gonna do this thing immediately. And let's talk about. I will separate them a bit, but we talk about them as like a group thing, right? We talk about them as a group thing to begin with, right? Yeah. So with judo, this is a judo for me now because I have no idea what it means. yeah. Judo. I think that is jujutsu, right? Yeah. So grappling. Here's a grapple gear, right? Sticker and so on. Grappling is the A game, right? Yeah. Judo is an amazing self-defense martial art, right? So this is Jujutsu Judo, right? Because in self-defense, right, the greatest thing is to kind of just push your opponent down, basically, right? If your opponent loses balance, then you kind of got them, right? If the opponent goes on the ground, now they can't fight anymore, right? And the best thing, generally speaking, right, with self-defense, is that it's kind of like the football thing, where someone sees blue, right? So if you have a lineman and they do the push thing in the American football and the guy falls over, like, whoa! suddenly you see the sky. That's called seeing blue, right? Or seeing blue, or whatever. And what happens, a lot of people, is that they kind of get shocked, right? It's like, oh, how did I get here? So, like judo and similar martial arts are incredibly effective in self-defense, because if someone attacks you at the school or whatever, right, or at the bar or something, you throw them, you do like a typical basic judo throw, right? You throw them on the ground. Most people is like, how did I get here, right? And that completely basically disarms them, right? And it basically, most people can't handle that, right? They just get like, oh shit, I lost, and their brain kind of turns off. And I mean in a good way, both if you keep taking it, but more like to give up, yeah. So when I have used judo personally, I've trained judo for many years, right? Judo is one of my oldest martial arts. Every time I use judo as self-defense, which I've done a few times in my life, then basically the fight's over immediately. Yeah, you throw them down, bang, right? You throw them down, bam, and they're like, and then they just like, oh, what happened? And then they just surrender because they're so confused about it, right? Yeah. And it's a very, very like demoralizing thing to be thrown on the ground. Yeah, if I grab you, right, you get his typical, black. Here's a gi, for judo throwing. If I grab you and they take toy, bam, you got, ready. You get immediately, you get confused. Right? So all the grappling stuff, right? Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, can say thing, MMA, and also wrestling, then, right? Wrestling and so on. All of these martial arts are very good for self-defense, and they are basically the best, except maybe like Mauy Thai, I would say, right? Because it might sometimes be hard to grab someone. But yeah, so grappling, generally speaking, is incredibly good to defend yourself, because mostly what happens is the opponent, right? Your bully or whatever attacks you get attacked in your school, right? The cafeteria, whatever, and you throw him on the ground, and then you can also run away, you can leave and so on. But most of the time, the bully just gets like, what just happened, right? Yeah, and you get their brain basically turns off, right? So they almost always more or less surrenders after you throw them, right? Very few people stand up again. It's like, let's keep fighting. Yeah, very, very uncommon, right? And of course, after you throw them, you also might lock them, and you might, use some other martial art to kind of like, lock them down, right? But if even ignoring the actual, like, I'm gonna lock your arm or your leg or whatever, you use a throw itself, or maybe a sweep, depending on what happens, right? You might sweep someone's leg and throw them on the side. I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you have 20, 10, 30 different techniques, different sides, but the basic point is that you throw them you get them on the ground, right? You get them on the ground by either a throw or a sweep or something, right? And almost everyone, like a school setting or at a bar or something, or at the street or whatever, right? They basically just surrender when it happens. Like, I did it myself. A guy was attacked me. It was at my what's it called? Basically the prom. Yeah, the prom basically, right? So it was the prom, and I've been dancing with some of my friends, like my classmates mostly, at the kind of dance place, So I'm walking off kind of the stage, right? So this is like a plateau. I'm walking off the stage. A guy comes to me from another class, and he's really drunk. He's like, "You dance with my girlfriend," and he punched me, right? The thing is that it wasn't his girlfriend, it was my classmate. He probably liked her, obviously, then, given the context. But so he chose to punch me, right? And I was 18 now, so I'm black belt in judo. I've been doing judo, taekwondo, Thai boxing, competing in judo for many years, and other martial art, Taekwondo and so on. So of course it kicks in, right? So I just grab him and throw him. He punches me, right? He's kind of drunk, throws a punch. I grab his arm, and I grab his leg, and I do a typical throw, yeah. And I throw him down, right? Bam, right? He immediately is like, and he's still drunk, but he still is like, he kind of does this thing, like, fuck, and then I'm like, what the F are you doing, right? I'm just like, what's wrong with you, tard, etc. And YouTube, I did some YouTube comments on him. I'm like, I throw some YouTube heat on him, what I mean? And he immediately is just like, oh, don't hurt me, bro, yeah, and basically gives up immediately. And I've been there more than once, but that's, of course, it's anecdotal. But it happens a lot in that sense. You throw someone down, right? You don't even need to lock them. Of course, I could have grabbed him and got him into a typical, judo hold, right? Or I could have done some kind of hold on him, right, after I threw him. But he basically surrendered immediately. He was like, oh, yeah. That's how most people that are noobs, they're not used to it, right? And it's a very interesting, generally speaking, because it's also very, very interesting, right? When I started training Taejutsu, I had already trained Judo for like 8 years or whatever, right? That's what I trained Taejutsu. And so I still had to kind of go through the noob year until I get to advanced class or whatever. And it was kind of funny because the sensei there, they were throwing us, with different Taejutsu throws. And, I can see it, right? My older classmates in that dojo, they were like, oh shit, my back, or oh, I'm falling, and whatever, yeah. And they throw me, and I'm just like, okay, let's do it again. I just roll around, I'm like, whoop, but I get up again, because I've been thrown, in the judo dojo so many times. So I'm like, whatever, who cares, So there is a weakness though in that. Everything I'm describing now, right, typical self-defense, right? But there is certainly a weakness to it. I won't say weakness, but there's an obvious difference, right? If you throw someone, even on the street, right, and they are an experienced, judoka, I've seen like Golden Kamui and so, oh, this guy's a judoka, his ears are, yeah. If you throw a judoka that is experienced though, you know what I mean? It's a massive difference. Did you stand up again? You're like, yeah, let's go. Yeah, that is a massive difference though. There is a huge difference for basically any self-defense situation. If you actually have to fight a real fighter, especially then like a person with judo or Brazilian Jujutsu or Gracie Jujutsu, whatever. I mean, they're all kind of the same from a mental standpoint, right? From a mental standpoint. The techniques are very similar too, but from a mental standpoint, very similar. If the other guy is used to the jutsus, yeah, they just stand up again, right? If you don't hold them, but yeah, if you just throw them away from you, they just roll around and get up again. They are like, okay. I mean, then it gets really ineffective in that. I mean, it's still effective, but yeah, it's like, oh, you just did it. But it is a massive thing that throwing someone down, no matter if you use wrestling or taijutsu or whatever, budokai, yeah, whatever you use as your grappling move, right? Yeah, grappling is incredibly effective against anyone that has no experience, or even have slight experience. Yeah, but if they don't have that like veteran experience of fighting, they can't handle being thrown. Right? From a mental standpoint, usually almost always will surrender as a cover, and that's true for all of these martial arts, for all the judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, whatever. It's true for all wrestling, and all of them has the same effect, right, on a person that hasn't been there before. So they're incredibly anti-noob, right? And that's usually like 9 out of 10 times at least, right, in a self-defense situation, you're gonna fight a person with experience. You're gonna fight the person that actually can fight, right? And then people that have like kind of street fighting brawler experience, even they aren't used to like technical throws on. They're more used to kind of fist punching, right? So even those guys are kind of like used to brawlers on the street kind of guys, drunken brawlers. Even they aren't used to being thrown like a baby. So they're also like, oh, what's happening? So it is incredibly effective, right? But step at Mauy Thai that higher, right? Because Mauy Thai is always effective, yeah. So if I fight an experienced martial artist, right, on the street, and I elbow him in the face, that's always effective. If you break his nose, that always works, you know what I mean? Mauy Thai is always like, I just elbow you in the face immediately, yeah. I just smack you in the face. That always works pretty good. That's always effective, okay? That's effective no matter what, yeah. That's always gonna be good. But I think that I mentioned earlier, also Mauy Thai is so good against most of the, like a school or something, yeah, like a bully environment, right? The typical, the way you kind of get into like a defense fight, Mauy Thai is so effective because it's so close to it. But at the same time, as I mentioned, all the grappling kind of applies to things. Anyway, let's order them around then. I was talking about Budokai or Taejutsu specifically. So, Gracie Jujutsu is kind of classic, but I think that still Judo is kind of the arch-typical Japanese martial art. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they have more takedown. They have a little different things to it. I always felt that Judo was slightly better than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I trained them both for many years, but I feel Judo is a little better at just getting them down on the ground for self-defense. That makes any sense, because I'm valuing getting them on the ground highly. MMA is like, I guess you can do everything, but most people are grapplers, I feel, that do MMA. They usually get people grapplers. And then we have wrestling over here. You can see it outside. I think wrestling is just weaker. Yeah, wrestling has kind of the weirder Western style of it. I think wrestling is better than I do think it's better than karate or so on. Yeah, I think wrestling is better for the same reasoning I was talking about. But I don't find that wrestling is that good compared to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I'm gonna put it here. And then we got Budokan. Right, Budokan is usually seen by many people as this kind of weird LARPing, right? So this is Budokan here. They don't have Taejutsu, but Budokan or Ninjutsu or Taejutsu is usually kind of the same thing. So let's talk about it. So I'm gonna put it at the best martial art. It's obviously the greatest, the ninja, the Naruto martial art. The thing with Budokan, right? Almost I'm biased because I got a black belt in Budokan. I'm biased here, but the thing with Budokan, or then Taejutsu rather than Taejutsu, is that Taejutsu, if you train it right, a typical dojo, it is basically like training judo. I mean, I've done them both many years, right? And I've blacked up in both of them. And they're very, very similar. They almost have the same technique, honestly. I mean, I trained judo first for many years before I trained Taejutsu. And it's all the same throws and everything, basically. Right? So you kind of get the same technique. Both Japanese martial arts, you get the same throws there. So you got to go for it, right? So it basically has all the judo moves. I think it's fair to say, if you train Taejutsu at a good dojo, you basically they teach you all the judo moves as well, right? So you get everything the judo has, right? And if I rate judo as like really 80, judo at least 80, right? Yeah, I have to rate Taejutsu higher than judo. I really mean that because it has everything judo has. The whole like LARPing thing with the ninjas and so on, yeah, it's a thing too. But they also do train all the judo moves basically, right? So you got all of those. Okay, fine. So it's better than judo, more or less. I guess the argument that can be made is that if you train it, you will not do only judo. The argument that can be made is that if you train judo, you will only train the grappling moves. But you train Taejutsu, you train Dasa plus other stuff, which makes you kind of, rougher. But I mean, in my list here, I'm imagining that you're like a Shaolin monk. So I'm imagining you train it, and you have a black belt, right? I'm imagining you have mastered your martial art, But that, to be fair, though, for example, right, I mentioned earlier, Mauy Thai is the best thing to probably get quick, and I mean, it's incredibly effective, and it's easy to learn to get pretty good, right? Taejutsu is probably one of the harder ones to get, So in that sense, it's like a freaking bottom tier, man, because it takes more time, right, to make it effective. But not that much more time. It's kind of like, roughly the judo time, right? Yeah. But again, everything compared to like just elbowing someone is way time, right? So anyway, it's kind of like judo, okay? So it's basically judo. But it also has all the weapons, right, It also has all the Kenjutsu and so on. I definitely do have some valuation, as I mentioned earlier, right, with being able to use that. But the thing is that Taejutsu is a better weapon martial art for self-defense, than, for example, than all these Iado and Kendo and so on, right? Because those martial art, they rely on you having like a proper sword or whatever, right? But Taejutsu, while they also have, or the Ninjutsu then, has swords and katanas, and they have the nunchucks or whatever, right? They have this kind of stuff. They have the kusuri fundo instead. They have a similar nunchuck weapon, right? Yeah. Kusuri fundo. So while they have that stuff in their martial art, okay, the thing is that Ninjutsu is a martial art mostly focused when it comes to weapons. Mostly focused on just using random shit you find, It is actually the martial art. Just like kind of like Kraw Maga. It's the martial art that's kind of like, okay, what do you have on you? You have your chain on you? Because that's kind of thing. Kraw Maga is a martial art. It's like, oh, if someone attacks you on the street, use your knees and, punch them with your keys in their eyes, I meant keys, yeah, I said keys. Keys, I mean. Yeah. Kraw Maga is like, take up your key chain and punch them in the face, That's kind of like Kraw Maga, right? And Taejutsu is the same thing too. They're like, oh, what do you have on you? You have your chain on you? Punch them in that, yeah, Kraw Maga, and they're the same mentality. They're like, oh, no. What do you have on you? Yeah, you're so in Taejutsu that I train in different dojos, but when I train especially the longest, you have techniques that are like, oh, someone fights you in a bar. What do? Grab the glass, throw it in his face, then you elbow him. That's kind of the mentality if you train a proper ninjutsu dojo. I really mean it. I don't mean this. I think ninjutsu get such a bad rap because there's so many mock dojos, right? They're like, oh, we do this thing with the moon. But the real essential part of ninjutsu is that you fight to kill the opponent. You know what I mean? That's kind of the real goal of it. Yeah. Oh, you throw stuff. Yeah. So it is a martial art where it's completely fine to not only use any kind of technique, like judo throws, because it basically is judo, more or less, like that. And then also different punches and all, right? But they also have like, oh, if someone fights you at school, well, grab your book and throw them in your face, and then you punch them in the knees or whatever. You punch them in between the balls there. Yeah, and there is this, like, when I trained in my first dojo in Ninjutsu, one of the katas you train in, right, was that the idea was that when you bow, typical Japanese, you bow. When the guy bows at you, you punch them in the face with your bow. So you have a bow, right? This is the kata. You have a bow, and when you do that, you have a bow kata. you start when he bows, you punch him with it. You attack him with it while he's bowing. Yeah, it's like completely unethical. Yeah, it's like this is how you do it, and it's like this doesn't make any sense. How do we train it? Well, the other guy expects it. He punches you as well. And it's another kata in Taejutsu where you do the seisa bow, right? Bowing from sitting down, and then when you do that, the other guy throws like a weapon at you. You have to jump it over. So I know it sounds silly and it sounds LARPing and so on. It really does. But from a mental standpoint, right? The idea of Taejutsu isn't that, I have a katana on me and I throw it in the opponent's face when he attacks me on the street. The point is that the idea that what you teach in Ninjutsu, right, and then Taejutsu, but look at Ninjutsu part now, the weapon part. The point, right, of Ninjutsu is to teach you that if someone attacks you on the street, right, everything goes, you have any weapon of disposal, this thing, that thing, this tree branch, I don't care, like if you're in a bar, the glass, the alcohol, everything around you is a weapon, right? That's the idea. Very, again, similar to Kraw Maga, the whole idea is that everything you have on you is like a weapon, so if you fight someone at a bar, you can punch. You are the guy using the. Basically, if they break, a bottle, right? Coming after you with like a glass, broken glass bottle, right? You do the same thing. You also break yours. Yeah, you do the exact same shit. Yeah, that's the idea of Ninjutsu, right? In actual self-defense, right? There is no rules. Everything is to survive, right? That's the whole idea. No rules applies. And when you train different weapons or tools in Ninjutsu, the point isn't to just master the blade. The point is to master everything that is kind of like a blade, So it has the mentality of like the Iado, Kendo, whatever. This is a stick. It's kind of like a katana. I don't have a katana on me, I don't go around like this, in the street. But I kind of have something, a stick or something, and I have this thing. I can use my staff or something. I can, if I'm an old man, I can punch you with my staff, or whatever, right? For example, Ninjutsu has that staff as a fake sword. Yeah, my sensei had one of those. My grandmaster sensei, my nine Dan trained me. My first master in Ninjutsu, he had one of those. Yeah, the chain sword. Where you can pull out the sword out of your cane. But there is another cane weapon that is basically like a cane with a sharp edge on it. You can like poke someone with it. Yeah, so it looks like a cane, but it actually is much more dangerous than a normal cane. Like stuff like that is how I think in the Ninjutsu. So I really do think, honestly, that it is a very good self-defense thing, because you don't think about, I'm gonna have my nunchuck on me, right? It's more like I have something around me in self-defense that is useful, right? If someone attacks me at school, I'm just gonna throw a chair at them, you know what I mean? That's kind of how a Ninjutsu master thinks. You don't think like, what's the rules? You think like, how do I kill him as fast as I can? Right? How do I eliminate you before you eliminate me? That's how you think, right? From the weapon standpoint, right? And then if you ignore all the ninja mentality, right? Then you have basically judo, right? Yeah, kinda. Because Taejutsu, they do allow punching and kicking. They allow that stuff, right? But it's more like, they allow that. You have some different weird punches. Your money stance. That's all pretty crap, though. Yeah, with the Kiwi and Happo and so on. That stuff is pretty meh, though. The actual like Taejutsu defense moves and so on. Those are pretty meh. Yeah, the real one. The Kiwi and Happo is on your leg. Those ones are pretty. Those are probably the most LARPy ones, where it feels like this isn't really an effective martial arts stance or whatever. So there's the weakness of them. But if you ignore that and look at that, just like, okay, you have punch and kicks that are not the best punch kicks. That's the weakness, though. But again, right, it basically is a typical jutsu, right? A typical Brazilian jutsu, judo, jutsu, whatever. It has more or less all the same throws and locks and arm grabs and different. It has all of those moves, right? Yeah, it has all the typical jutsu moves, plus the training with different tools, right? And I think that is more valuable, because basically, I look at it, it's like, okay, this, of course, I keep saying it, but I look at it as, this is judo plus, bunch of crazy weapons, right? Yeah, this is judo plus the weapons, and that's better than just having judo, right? Because you also teach to kick, punching, so. So if you train that stuff, you can do all the judo moves, but you also know how to, fight with the staff for this thing or that thing, right? So you have all the throw, you have the grappling, you have the throw stuff, plus now you can also use anything around you as a tool, right? Which has to make it better. It's just a better thing. And I'm looking at your max stats, though. That being said, though, if you only train for like a year or something, then I probably actually would recommend you the over, because then you only learn the effective grapples, right? But again, I'm looking at this, top tier self-defense like, okay, you train for 20 years. You pick one thing for 20 years. Obviously, boxing them, terrible, because you only learn fight, punch, right? And so on, Kyudo, extremely terrible, 20 years. But then, of course, these martial have everything is allowed, right? Kraw Maga, Taejutsu, and so on. Everything is allowed. Much better. But still, though, Muay Thai is more effective, yeah. Because actually, while everything is basically allowed in for example Taejutsu, you don't have the elbows, you don't have the knees. Not really, no. They don't have the effectiveness. You have a few other ones, they'll end there, but this is kind of the whole video now. They kind of summarize what I want to say here with Taejutsu, but we have a few other ones. Capoeira, which is crap. I do wanna, this is a Greek Pantheon, this is like old school Greek stuff, it's somewhere in the level of random mess stuff. It's like the new character, Civil 6. Yeah, this stuff is like here in the middle somewhere. They're all kind of the same thing, Bang Show actually is the most effective Korean. It's probably up here though. This is elbow kung fu basically. What's that? Kali Piata? I don't know what that is. Don't know what it is. Rough and Rumble. No idea what that is. The last thing I want to mention is Capoeira, right? Which is useless. Capoeira is like bottom tier. The last thing I want to talk about is dance combat. Yeah, that's the last thing I want to cover here in the video. The rest are just like whatever mid-tier stuff that no one cares about. Yeah, let's just do Capoeira as my last rant here then. It's important of my rant here. So Capoeira is crap, right? Yeah, it really is. Capoeira is terrible. And now people hate, oh, Capoeira is just because you're a fat white guy. No. Capoeira is incredibly ineffective in so many ways, right? So first of all, it's a dance thing, right? It's made to be a martial art. But it looks cool and flashy, people like it. But the problem with Capoeira, right, is that in one way, it's kind of like Taekwondo, right? But less effective. So it's kind of like hovering, It's like it's Eddie versus hovering, right? But the thing with Taekwondo versus Capoeira is they're both kind of kick focused and you move around and so on. The thing is that Capoeira has the worst defense, right? The most important thing for self-defense, to survive on the street, right, is defense points, yeah. The most important thing is to have high defense, You see how I value stuff like the Jujutsu and the Sai, I value stuff like self-defense, right? I value actual defensive martial arts, because in the end of the day, if you fight someone on the street, I keep saying the Mauy Thai is probably the best one, right? Because you have got the elbows on, yeah. It's very, very defense-oriented, right? And I hope you understand where I'm coming from mostly, right? Because, as I said, right, Judo, Brazilian Jujutsu, etc., Taejutsu, very good in self-defense because they're all grappling martial arts. So someone jumps you at school or at the bar or whatever, you can throw them, right? As I talked about in my setting there. So, jutsu, yeah, very effective, right? These jutsus, that kind of throw them on the ground, right? The judos, etc. Very, very effective in martial art. Muay Thai, again, very effective because you can elbow in the face. You elbow them, you need them. Incredibly high damage. Very, very good in close combat, right? What is Capoeira? It's probably the absolutely worst martial art that has ever existed in close combat because you're a dancer. But seriously, you do all this dance move, jump around and so on. Nothing that works if the guy is on you. You know what I mean? If the guy is already grappling you, if the guy has already jumped you, if the guy's already, backstabbed you, whatever, nothing, the Capoeira does work, right? I mentioned earlier, Taekwondo is a decent martial in self-defense because you have powerful kicks and blocks and so on. But just like Taekwondo and Karate and so on, they need like good distance, right? Capoeira needs like total distance. Yeah, Capoeira is a martial art that is good if the opponent stands on maximum distance, right? Let's dance, bro, right? You get on the max distance, and now it's coming at you, and you go, dance, dodge you, Then it's somewhat effective, but it's only happening if you're in complete control of the situation, if you know that the guy's coming at you, right? And it's incredibly bad against more than one opponent as well. Imagine you three guys jumps to in a close combat hallway or something, right, at school. You're gonna start dancing. Give me some space, guys. I need dance. Or are you gonna throw one guy on the ground, elbow the other guy, knee the third guy, and then break the guy's arm? And then you can dance effective. Grab the guy's arm, break his hand, crack the Taejutsu, like break the thumb, whatever. Yeah. For example, Taejutsu, right, has a lot of this, hand breaks, right? So someone grabs you here at school, you break his thumb, That's kind of Taejutsu and Kraw Maga. Yeah, you break his thumb, right? That's very effective to get free, right? Capoeira is like, no, I wanna dance, bro. Yeah, but seriously, it is honestly the worst martial art. It's a dance, but an actual life and death situation where someone has already gone close to you, you can of course argue that, oh, but that's your own fault because you didn't have the awareness or something, right? But the thing is that most street fights, most school fights there, they start with one of the person having not been prepared for it, right? Usually the other person is angry, you know, it's a bully, they can't control themselves right. It's some drunk guy, whatever. It always a criminal. Some guy want to rob you, right? You know, and they attack you, right? And almost in all these situations, you can't see it coming. You might see it coming in the sense that, oh, this guy is a bully. He bullies me every day, and he punches me sometimes. You might see it coming in that sense, but most of the time, right, especially in a street fight, you probably don't see it coming. Or if you see it coming, you see it coming in like, oh, this guy is really angry at me at this bar. I need to disengage, right? But it's pretty close to me, and then of course trying to move away, trying to get distant is important part. But again, you can't just start breaking out your dance moves. You need a lot of space, and also Capoeira, you need space around you. You know what I mean? If someone attacks you in a bar setting, you can't just start dancing, even if it's a dance floor, because you can't have all the people around you, right? It's very, very hard. When it's like in Taejutsu, you just grab your drink, punch them in the face with the glass, and then you take the shot, and you basically, you keep punching them in close combat, right? Yeah. You don't have this luxury to start your, like, expressive. You need a lot of space, right? That's the problem with the word for Capoeira. That it's just a space requiring martial art, right? Which makes it incredibly bad defense points from that standpoint. Secondly, Capoeira is useless in a real fight against a guy that can't fight. People say, oh, you're wrong. No, it's useless because if the guy, even if we have like a duel and the guy is like, ready to fight me, we have this like, oh yeah, we have a distance, right? In like a dojo or whatever, in a tournament. Even then, Capoeira does nothing because the other guy is kind of like, okay, let's go, and I'm standing there, and you just run at them, You just bomb rush them because Capoeira has no defense points. They can only avoid you, kind of ish, but you just grab their body, right, and break the limbs. Yeah, you just go at them, right? You don't care about the whole flashy moves or whatever kicks. You just go at them. They can only be effective by like doing some kind of weird flash kick, basically, from distance. And the thing is that also the worst thing with Capoeira, because I think it's similar to the nunchuck, right? Nunchuck is actually a terrible, weapon, right? Because if you hit someone with a nunchuck, the stick flies very randomly, right? Even for yourself too. So it's very hard to kind of using it more than once, right? A lot of Capoeira kicks leaves you open, not only to be attacked, but also leaves you open to a randomness of it. Because if the older opponent just blocks you, right? If you jump at me, right, with some Capoeira or random stuff, right? And I just block that, right? I've trained, Taekwondo and Thai boxing for 15 years, right? So I'm used to blocking kicks, So I block that at my body, right? I take it in my arm. Now you have to kind of stabilize your own balance again, right? And that's kind of almost random. Unless you're like a genius Capoeira guy, you can't really balance perfectly. Because if I block like this, or like that, or like this, it's gonna alter your angle, right? So it's very, very hard for the Capoeira guys to actually regain their composure, right? The posture stance after the hit, if you block it, right? And that's a fact. And you might see the movies, see some people on TikTok doing this cool thing, but think about it. Basically, every time a Capoeira guy wins or whatever, it's like one kick, right? Yeah. Oh, this kick is very powerful. It's one kick. You think? Yeah, but if you miss that kick, or the guy blocks you, or you just grabs you at the same time, or like a double takedown kind of position, you're toast, right? And if he grabs you, either you kick him hard in his rib or whatever, you break one rib, now it grabs you and breaks your legs, basically. It's just like, no, it's so ineffective. And also the Capoeira guys, because I know people that been trying Capoeira against me and so on, right, in dojos. And it's a joke because you have no experience when it comes to wrestling, right? No experience with Judo and so on. So as long as I just grab you, right, and then get you into my, I'm wrestling you on the ground, right? Because again, I have a lot of experience with Judo and so on, right? So if I just grab you and I get you into the wrestling point, Taejutsu, all those years, right? Jujutsu and so on. Yeah. If I get you on the ground, right, you're toast, right? And everyone knows it. Right? If I grapple, I get you on the ground, you can't win anymore unless you can't grapple, right? And no martial art really should be limited without that. Again, that's why I rate this martial art very high. Only Mauy Thai is the only martial I rate high without having grappling, basically. Yeah, that's like the only martial art that I rate super high. This S tier martial art, right? It's the only martial art I rate as the highest, even if they don't focus on grappling at all, because they have the strongest, most effective attacks, right? The elbow and knees. So even if you grapple them, they can still neck clinch you, right? On the ground is one thing though, but if you grapple them on a standing grapple, the knee, the the expert Mauy Thai guy is still more dangerous, basically, right? On the ground, though, yes, if you get it on the ground in the real like tick moment, okay, then they're kind of, but still they kind of they're very explosive with the knee, so they're not even that useless because you can steal the knee and so on the ground. So they can have this kind of ability too, yeah. They have like another version of grappling. They have like they have more an explosive grappling, right? So you're still not safe against a Mauy Thai pro in the close combat, right? Even if you're on the ground with them. But like Capoeira guy, for example, you're safe. They can't do anything. They have no idea what to do when you grapple them. They're like, oh, what do I do now? I wanna dance. Of course, I'm being a little facetious, but honestly, yeah, they're very useless. Think about it. A martial art with 0 defense points. They have evasion, I guess. Yeah, it's like a game. Yeah, just because they have like 100 evasion points. Yeah, but it's pretty crap if anyone ever hits you. You should have both. You know, all the martial art have evasion and defense points. They have block and evasion. Yeah, these guys are pure evasion, and that again, as I mentioned earlier, right? The worst part is that most, again, self-defense fights. This is a self-defense list, right? Most self-defense fights, you can't use your evasion, kinda, because the guy already grabbed you, you know what I mean? Most self-defense is a bully suddenly grabbing you, when you're sitting down in the cafeteria, he grabs you and start punching you. That's kind of like how most fights start at school, right? The guy grabs you, the guy starts something to do. The guy at the bar attacks you, your coworker goes crazy, whatever, you know what I mean? It's like something like that, right? So your evasion is very, very like limited, right? As I mentioned earlier, and again, of course, Capoeira, they're having no defense, only evasion, and like 90 evasion points reduction because this guy grabbed you when you were eating with your girlfriend. He grabbed you and started punching you. So you couldn't avoid that. Yeah. Now it's more like get used to take a punch, bro. Yeah. Yeah, my nunchuck fell down. No, come on. It's one of my short nunchucks. Yeah. That's the basic nunchuck. Yeah, this is the easiest one. Yeah, this one much easier, right? The dragon nunchuck is much harder to use. It's, again, more damage so on, but it's also harder to use because the longer chain makes it harder to grab to. And you can't do this thing. You see it maybe on TikTok, right? People do the nunchuck spin, right? So you can spin with one hand. Do it slow. It's less video. Slow nunchuck spin, so you can spin it around your hand, right? You can leave it up. Sit it down. But you get my point. Yeah, you do this thing, right? You know, you put your nunchuck, spin it like this, whip, right there, like that, you know. You leave the hand, and you know you can spin that. So you can sit down and do this thing right there. It's hard sitting down. Okay, one more time. Okay, one time, sitting down. Ah, there we go. It's hard sitting down doing it. But you get my point. This here, right, with the much longer chain, it can be done because if you spin it right, your hand gets stuck at the chain. So now this thing leaves, you can't barely grab. It's much harder grabbing the other stick. So you can do it, but it's much harder. So this is like a very it's kind of fun. Like this nunchuck here. It's again by far the most effective. I have 3 nunchucks. It's by far the most effective actual self-defense nunchuck. This chuck is way more effective, right? Higher damage, more weight, harder. It's like made out of you know. So it's hard and everything. So this is much more effective as an actual self-defense tool, but it's incredibly not flashy because you can't do most of those. You can do this trick, but you can't do this hand flip. Basically, you can't do those cool Bruce Lee tricks with it. You can't do the tricks with it, but it's an actual like combat chuck. So it looks way more boring, you know. It looks way more boring. Anyway, guys, please subscribe, hit the like button. What should we do next? Maybe some other videos. I can say do into the whole fictional martial art. I of course skipped a lot of martial arts here, or not in this here, but obviously you could talk about all the different styles, elbow, kung fu style, and stuff and so on. Right? But I mostly want to just focus on how Muay Thai, right? The whole elbow, knee defense is much better. How grappling is much better, right? And then all this like punching people in the face, martial art kind of like in the mid tier, right? And all the weapons martial art are kind of like not useless, but they do something. Yeah, they're kind of like, oh, they train Kendo, and it's like, you know, you can use it, but it's not very good. That's why I think, again, something Taejutsu or Budokan, combining, for example, the weapon martial art with Judo, right, is much more effective because then you can use either. If you don't have a weapon, you can use Judo. If you have a staff, you can use the staff, you know. If you have this, you can use it. So, much more effective. Anyway, guys, it's a long rant, no editing. See you guys, and have a great day.